when you're not creating chances, it's the questions that need to be asked.
And we have to be prepared to play, and we weren't prepared to play yesterday. We kind of gave up a first period, third period effort today, and that's not near good enough.
Meanwhile, shot the back post, intended across, tipped in by Louis.
That is really, really pretty. The puck leaves the zone. There's 5 seconds left. The Sheffield Steelers know it. The Coventry Blaze know it. And now you at home know it as well. That is the final buzzer. It's Coventry Blaze nothing. The Sheffield Steelers 2.
Hello everybody and welcome to another Blaze Round Table. This week, Dustin Wood pulls no punches talking about the weekend's performance and tells us what we can expect from new signing Park Woo-Sang.
Greg Owen talks about life on the top line with Fulgham and Fussy.
And Bryan Jurynec talks about stepping into the rings with the league's heavyweights. Hello everybody and welcome to the round table. This week is a little bit sombre after a weekend which wasn't the best for the Coventry Blaze, to put it mildly. Conceding 8 goals and scoring only 1. We talked to Greg Owen about that production in a little while. But first of all, Ed, it's 1 step forward and 2 steps back for this team, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I asked Jurynec whether he thought the team were inconsistent, and he just said that he didn't really think he described them as inconsistent. They just didn't have a very good weekend, and Dustin Wood kind of agreed. He said that they just weren't prepared for it, and that's a bit annoying. I think Tomo will be a bit annoyed by that comment because in the dressing room above the door, they've got fail to prepare, prepare to fail in massive lettering. So, preparation is everything for hockey, and Tomo is meticulous in preparing for weekends. He joked with us when we first played Belfast that he didn't have a clue who we were really playing against, and confided us in private that actually he knew exactly what we were up against. And that comment I think surprised a few people and got a few people talking because that was pretty out of character for him. But yeah, you don't like to go into a weekend only scoring 1 goal, and the guy that scored the goal was a stay-at-home defenseman. But we didn't have Guthrie, and I'm a big Guthrie fan, as you probably figured out by now if you watch the webcast or this show. And not just because he's a great player, but Tomo admires him too as a real impact guy. And he was playing hurt against Nottingham, and he still managed to score one of the best goals I've seen at the Skydome. Especially against Nottingham. Brandon Benedict, who he took to pieces, and Benedict's a smart player. He's really good in his own zone, and he caught Corey Nielsen flat-footed, and that's not easy to do. And yeah, we played 2 big teams, and we knew the next 4 games were going to be tough. When we went against the against the Steelers and the Devils and the Panthers and the Giants, and we did good against Belfast, and that we carried the momentum through to the Nottingham game. And I just think last night caught us flat-footed, and I think that carried over onto the Sunday game. But yeah, we spoke to Dustin Wood, and we also spoke to him about Woo-Sang Park, but he talks a little bit about being unprepared for the hockey games on the weekend and how that affected the team. So I'm here with new Coventry Blaze defenseman Dustin Wood. Dustin, you've been here for a couple of weeks now. You've certainly made an impact, a couple of goals, and you seem to, as far as the fans are concerned, I'm sure the coaching staff too, been just what the team needs at the back, steadying the ship. How's it been for you?
Oh, Again, I've been here for 2 weeks. I played 6 games, and as soon as I arrived here, we got into a 2-game stand right away. But it's been good. It's a great bunch of guys, and again, you have to kind of adapt to what goes on here and how things are run. And I've been around, and I'm pretty experienced, so I can adapt pretty easily. And I'm not a huge fan of the back-to-back games, but again, that's the schedule down here, and you have to adapt and prepare yourself. And this was a tough weekend for us. So again, we got 5 games coming up. 5 days off where we're a lot of practicing and working on things. We better be ready to play next weekend.
It must be frustrating as well for the team only scoring 1 goal, and who scored it?
You know what? It is frustrating, and I guess if you can't score, you're not going to win games. And if it wasn't for Hershey, through 2 games, it could have got a little ugly. And so we can't explain. We can't use tiredness as an excuse, and it's the way it is in this league. And we have to be prepared to play. And we weren't prepared to play yesterday. We kind of gave a first period, third period effort today, and that's not near good enough. And it's indicative of the score. They beat us 2-0, and we couldn't really get anything going offensively.
We hear you were quite influential in bringing in the new guy, Woo-Sang Park, someone who you played with in the Asian League. Tell us a little bit more about him, what to expect from him.
Well, I think he's going to be in for a little bit of a whirlwind once he gets here. I played with him for 2 years. He's a highly skilled player that can score goals. He's a big body that can skate. He can play physical when the time's there. I think the biggest thing for him, I know hockey's second nature. We're all hockey players, so hockey comes easy, but I think adapting to the life outside the rink will be a little bit challenging for him. I know him, and I'm sure he'll have a few questions once he get here, and I can kind of, help him and show him the ropes. And I think once he warms up, the boys will like him, and I think he'll be a good asset to our team.
You were saying about the lifestyle being different. From what I can grab, the leagues are quite similar with the Asian League.
Oh yeah, like the hockey's similar, and again, he's a hockey player. We're all hockey players, and you go out and you play hockey. You come to the rink and you prepare. But I think a little bit outside the rink, he's going to have a little bit of adapting to do. It'll open his eyes, and again, that's where I can kind of come in, and guys can kind of help him out and show him the ropes and show him how things are run here. And I think once he does adapt to that, and it might take him a while, and that's understandable. But once he does, I think he can. You'll have a good time, and he'll play well.
So that was not really holding back. You can rely on Dustin Wood for a decent interview. It appears he was there saying that it's kind of surprising. You don't really expect players to come out afterwards and admit that maybe they didn't prepare as well and they didn't turn up for this one. And Dustin Wood, clearly a leader in the locker room. You can imagine if he said that sort of thing in the dressing room as well, then that might have woken a few people up, because it was interesting afterwards. He seemed fairly upbeat, but harsh words, do you think there?
I think fair words. I think, Woody's been around enough and he's played in every top league apart from the NHL in the world almost. And, if he's got something to say, he's the kind of player that people bloody well listen to and should blooming well listen to, because he's quality. Tomo described him as one of the best defensemen he's ever coached. And there are some top guys up there. You look at the guys who've got like Neil Martin, for instance. I mean, he was a quality. I mean, these are two different guys, two different players, but on paper they've played in similar leagues. I mean, Marty he played a lot more in North America, and then kind of came over to Europe a little bit and switched back and forward before finally settling with Coventry. But Dustin Wood was right, I think, because he's worn captain's badge and assistant captain's badge pretty much wherever he's been, and the only reason he's not wearing one for us is because he's coming late. And it would be unfair to turn around to one of the guys that Tomo's already given one to and say, well, actually, I'm going to take it off you and I'm going to give it to Dustin. But, yeah, I mean, you need guys like that in the dressing room anyway. I mean, there's no good just relying on, your captain and your two assistants for the voices in the locker room. You want the guys like Woody to step up and, cuss people out if they need to be cussed out. But, give them kind of something to measure up to, and, it's almost like the wise old man sat in the corner. I mean, Ron Schuder was massive doing that, because that team that we had when Schuds was in was a really young team as well, and he kind of he partnered Andreas Moborg, and he really helped Moby's game, because Moby was fantastic the year with Schuder, and you could just see that influence. But yeah, he also talked about the new guy Park Woo-Sang, the Korean guy who's coming in, and that's going to be really interesting for the Blaze, obviously, because we've only seen one Korean guy in the Elite League, and that was Alex Kim for Edinburgh, and he was only half Korean, half Canadian, whereas Park Woo-Sang is 100% Korean as far as we're aware, and he's never played outside the Asian League apart from on international duty, and he's going to be a really big player. And if Dustin Wood turns around and recommends someone, you're going to listen. You know what? No offense to him, because he's here on a month trial, but if you look at some of the people that Dustin Wood could have recommended, because he's been around, he could have been recommending guys that were earning six figures a year. But I don't think, no disrespect to him, that Woo-Sang Park will be commanding a high wage packet at the Blaze, because he comes out of a Korean league. He has, I'm not sure about what the wages are like over there, but I know that their top players earn a lot because, they command a lot of ice time, and that's why it's quite similar to over here. But Tomo wanted a top line centre, and we've had Greg Owen on the show this week, and it's interesting because we're talking about Woo-Sang and what he's going to bring, and we're also talking about Greg Owen on life on the top line, and he's going to be really challenged for that position between Fulgham and Fussy. And this is what he has to say about life on the top line.
Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of see my role between them is just to service them a little bit, really. Try and generate pucks in on the forecheck and just get them pucks when they're in scoring opportunities. I mean, Fulgi's a guy that can create his own scoring chances on the rush, and Fussy's a guy who's just really strong down low. So, yeah, it's trying to sort of balance them out, really.
You've played against Woo-Sang Park, I believe, for Great Britain when he was for Korea. What do you know about him, and what do you think he's going to bring to the team?
I know absolutely nothing about him, but I'm hoping that when he gets here, he's going to bring a bit of a competitive edge within the team, pushing for places, and having a new guy that's trying to prove himself is always good for everybody else. Pushes everybody else on to be better. So apart from that, I mean, I don't really know what to expect.
It's interesting that he says that he knows hardly anything about Park Woo-Sang, and for anyone who's confused, by the way, it is Park Woo-Sang. Korean names go surname first, so we'll refer to him as Park, but it is Park Woo-Sang. Ed's got his hand up, so I'll let you straight back in.
Well, that was, like you said, and what like Greg said was that he knew nothing about him, and that's just my point about how little people know about the Asian League, and that's why this could be a diamond in the rough signing, because Woo-Sang could either come over here and turn this team around, or he could come over here for the month trial and not really be up to scratch, and we say thank you very much, but it's not working out, and send him back home. But he's been to the Springfield Falcons American League training camp over the summer, so he's a guy that obviously is pricked up some ears. And the Asian League's tiny. I mean, I don't think they have a big export of hockey players, and Greg Owen's a guy that is a two-way guy, so he's got to know what he's up against. And it's interesting that he just doesn't remember Woo-Sang. I don't really know what to make of that.
It is, but you talk about him. Dustin Wood says one of the key things that Mr. Park Woo-Sang will have is the culture, because obviously moving from South Korea to Great Britain, he says it's interesting. He says the hockey is very similar, but the adjustment off the ice will be tricky. But Dustin Wood, having lived in both cultures, will hopefully help Mr. Park sort himself out, and we look forward to seeing him back next week. Obviously, he will be making his home debut against Belfast this Sunday. He'll be playing against Edinburgh on the Saturday, because I believe he's already in the country. I think the point was that he was going to arrive on Tuesday. But enough about new signings. We've been asked by several of you listeners on the roundtable to speak to Bryan Jurynec about scrapping. He had another big scrap over the weekend with Cole King, who is a tough customer himself, and Ed finally managed to grab him after several weeks of trying. We finally managed to pin Bryan down, and we spoke to him about what it was like dropping the gloves with the league's heavyweights.
So I'm here with Coventry Blaze forward Bryan Jurynec. Bryan, you look a little bit in the wars. A big fight tonight. It must be hard not being able to see the guy you're punching in the face.
Yeah, it happens, but go out there and give it your all, and win, lose, or draw, just as long as you go out there and give it your all.
So obviously you didn't have the best start to the season, the pre-season with the injuries and stuff. How do you feel you've settled in now, like a month in?
Getting better, it's getting adjusted to the guys, getting adjusted to the system out here in big rinks. But I think we're getting. I'm playing with Nell and Farmer right now, and they're two good players, and I think we're playing pretty well.
Yeah, Tom has been praising that line. What do you think about that line that works? What do you think it is?
I think we're all hard workers. We're getting in there, throwing some bodies around, and getting to the net and getting some goals. But we got to play good defensively, and that's our main role. Is not get scored on, but we got scored on tonight. But hopefully get some goals and mix it up a little bit.
So obviously you're noted for being a bit of an enforcer and a tough guy. You fought some of the bigger guys in the league, King tonight, Lapine a couple of times. Do you like that part of this league? You glad it's got a little bit of that?
Yeah, I love fighting. It's those guys are considered heavyweights. I think Lapine and Campbell and King, and I'm considering myself a middleweight. And, some big boys, but just as long as I show up, I think the guys enjoy it, and the fans enjoy it. So let's get out there and give it my all.
It makes you a bit of a fan favorite. How does that make you feel?
I love it. The fans are the main reason why we're here. And just, the fans are great here, and just great.
Yeah, one final question, obviously. Bit of a tough weekend after a good weekend last weekend. Would you call this team inconsistent at all?
I wouldn't call us inconsistent, but we didn't have a very good weekend. We got to put points on the board. You got to score some goals, and we just didn't have it this weekend. You can't have it. You can't win championships scoring one goal a weekend. We just got to come together and work harder in practice and come back next weekend.
And come out fighting, presumably.
That's what I'm talking about. Come out fighting.
Thank you, Brian. Cheers. Oh, man, I got to tell you, I love talking to Bryan Jurynec. If you watch the webcast, you know that I get all childish and excited when I see a fight. And Bryan, is just the kind of tough guy the Blaze have needed for a while, and someone that they've kind of lacked, I think. And he's a real energy guy, and he goes out there every game hard, and he gives it his all. And I think everyone was a little bit disappointed how the season started for him, because he messed his knee up, and he had to have a little bit of time out. And then when he came back, he wasn't match fit and thrown him really at the deep end. But he's starting to come into his own a little bit. I'd just like to see a little bit more of that pre-season game where he scored 2 goals and had those 2 on-run rushes with Domish, because that was a real side of Jurynec I don't think we've seen yet this year too much. And there's no doubt that he's got great vision. He's got a great head for hockey, and he's not the most skilled guy in the world, and I don't think that's unfair to say. But that line, like you said, of Nell and Farms is a worker line. It's like they're like the worker bees. Their aim is to go out there and stop the other team scoring, rather than scoring 50 goals a year themselves. But they like to chip in, and when you get a weekend where you only score 1 goal, the whole team scoring 1 goal in 2 games, that's where you kind of you need to try and find goals from your depth players and your third line. And I think Bryan possibly would be a little bit disappointed that he couldn't add to his tally, because he definitely had a couple of chances against the Steelers. And he kind of had that rebound out in front that DeCaro spat out, and he just couldn't beat him with it from a good angle.
It's interesting, he says as well, you set him up a bit with you're going to come out fighting next week, and that's nice because it moves us on to this weekend. It's a tricky one. It's Edinburgh away, which last season, let's be honest, most people would have been looking at and thinking that's 2 fairly easy points, but they are a good team, Edinburgh. They've got some very good players, particularly Rennie Yarolin and Richard Hartman, the 2 Slovaks, so they're going to be players to watch out for. And then on Sunday, of course, Belfast return to the Sky Dome. The big games just keep coming. It's going to be an extremely tricky one, this one. And what do the Blaze have to do, Ed? Because, if you get another performance like you did against Sheffield, admittedly Sheffield played very well and shut the Blaze down defensively, but if the top players aren't scoring, then the Blaze could be in trouble this weekend, and these are the games they can't afford to lose. The players have got to step up. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's like you said. I mean, last year Edinburgh will be almost the perfect opponent to go into Belfast the next day against, because you get confidence from beating teams conclusively, and Edinburgh, I don't think we're going to beat conclusively on Saturday night. I think we've got the depth, and it comes down to the talented Brits that we've got that kind of make up the difference in the teams. And good Brits can win your hockey games in this league, but they've got Yarolin, who's scoring left, right, and centre for them, and Hartman's a great player. And when they signed him as player coach, I think it came out of the blue a little bit, but I play Eastside Hockey Manager back in the day, and he was a guy I always used to try and sign for the Blaze, because you look at him on paper and he's exactly the kind of player that would fit in this league. And a guy that Tomo's called out, Matic Kral, needs to have a big weekend, and I think the game in Edinburgh will suit him, because he's he's Slovenian, so he's Eastern European, and the Hartman and the Edinburgh staff tend to go for the Eastern European players just because their wage demands are often a little bit lower than the Canadians, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're less quality, because they've got some big boys and some big players. And I think Kral maybe will suit that style a little bit more. I know he's a North American style, but he's looked a little bit rattled in games, and he got very frustrated against Sheffield, and you could see it in his game that he was he was trying really hard, but nothing was coming for him, and he took a few penalties and was hacking and slashing at people trying to make something happen. And it's annoying, because at the minute the Blaze need something to happen, and sometimes you just have to wait for it. I mean, McLean's done a great job of that, because it's not happening in the goal column for him at the minute, but he's chalking up the assists, and I think he's slowly bringing people on side McLean, because he's not going to be he's not scoring at the minute, but he's doing everything else, and Tomo's told everyone, look, this is what he's doing, watch out for this on the ice, instead of him missing the net. And people have gone, oh, actually, yeah. And we've seen it since the beginning, because that's our job, but I think it's just taking the Blaze fans a little bit of time to come to terms with him, and I think they're getting used to him. And following on from the Edinburgh game, that's going to be tough, and obviously they've got the travel involved as well, and that throws players off. And Woody talked about having bad prep, and I don't think that's going to help. I mean, I know that the players are used to longer road trips over in Canada, where sometimes you've got to sit for 13, 14 hours on a bus at a time, and then play, and then drive another 13, 14 hours back. But yeah, this league should be a little bit easier on them than that. And then we've got Belfast, and they always have the travel problem, and that doesn't seem to bother them.
This is true. Belfast are obviously over here on Sunday. It's interesting you say McLean is starting to win Blaze fans over. I don't think he is. He's still one of the players who's getting a lot of stick, unfairly, in my view. I fully agree with you, and I think Blaze fans should possibly back off a bit on Mike McLean in terms of his thing, because they're convinced he's a top-line centre. He obviously isn't. He was sold as a top-line centre. That was possibly an error, because he's come in and Tomo has found out that he now has to play more as a winger. If he's going to step up, though, Sunday is the perfect time to do it against Belfast. Another massive game. We'll be there at the Sky Dome covering it for the webcast. Hopefully you'll all be there too, as the Blaze try and bounce back from this weekend and get back to winning ways. We'll be back next week with the round table to react to that one. Hopefully a little more optimistic than this week, because there's been some harsh words, I think, said, relatively harsh words by the likes of Wood. So we'll see next week if they've had any effect. We'll be back with the round table next Wednesday. We hope you've enjoyed this one. Obviously, if there's any more players fans want on the show, or any ideas you have for the show, feel free to let us know, and we'll do our best to incorporate them in future weeks. But for now, from me, Paul Wheeler,
and from me, Ed Kimberley,
it's thanks for listening, and see you next week.